Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we are looking into a really interesting company, American Resources Corp. It kind of sits at this intersection, doesn't it, between old school industry like coal and the future of critical minerals and rare earths. And the big question we're tackling, the one that probably brought you here, is now a good time to buy this stock because it's complex. You've got this massive potential, right, driven by all the talk about domestic supply chains, bringing things back home. But then you look at the financials, and there are some, let's say, serious points of concern there. Before we really get into that puzzle, though, if you find the same kind of analysis helpful, please do subscribe, hit that like button. It really helps us out. And definitely leave a comment below. What do you think? Is there another company you'd like us to examine like this? Let us know its name.
It's a fascinating setup.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the analyst side, and you see this strong buy rating.
Yeah.
And not just a vague rating, but a very specific price target.
Yeah.
$4.67.
Yeah, that's huge. What is that, like 69% upside from where it is now?
Exactly. A massive implied gain. But like you said, that seems almost entirely focused on the future potential.
Right. It feels like it's ignoring the present reality a bit. How do you square that 69% potential upside with, well, the overall investment thesis rating we're seeing, which is only a 3 out of 10? That's low.
That disconnect is precisely what we need to unpack. The 3 out of 10 acknowledges those weak fundamentals, the current financial picture. While that strong buy, it's basically a bet, right? A bet on their big pivot into rare earth elements, specifically through their ReElement Technologies unit.
Okay. So revolutionary future versus maybe a shaky present. Let's start with the bull case then, the exciting part. Because if you look at just the last 3 months, say July through September 2025, there's been a ton of activity. It looks like they're really pushing hard on this domestic critical minerals angle.
Oh, absolutely. The operational momentum seems pretty undeniable right now.
Yeah.
Their whole strategy is about scaling up and scaling up fast. Just in September, ReElement announced a huge expansion, 141%, at their Noblesville, Indiana refinery.
141%. Wow.
Yeah. And they're not just expanding, they have a specific goal. Over 200 metric tons per year of high-purity rare earth elements and also defense elements.
Okay, 200 metric tons. That sounds like a serious number in this space.
It is. It positions them as a potentially key player in, building that independent U.S. supply chain we keep hearing about.
And it's not just building facilities, right? They're making strategic moves, too, like joining that consortium, CREATE.
Exactly. The Consortium for Rare Earth Technologies, that's not just some industry group. It's specifically focused on ultra-pure minerals for U.S. defense and national security needs.
So that puts them right in line for potential government support, government contracts.
Definitely. And that defense connection is, I think, absolutely vital to how people are valuing this company, or at least seeing the potential value. Think about it. Just in August, the Department of Defense gave ReElement $2 million, specifically to expand something called the LAD chromatographic separation platform at their Marion site.
Okay, hold on. LAD chromatographic separation. That's a bit technical. What exactly is that, and why does the DoD care enough to write a $2 million check for it?
Right. It sounds complicated, but think of LAD as their secret sauce for getting these rare earth elements incredibly pure. It's a specialized process, a technology that separates different elements much more precisely than standard methods.
Ah, okay. So it achieves a higher purity level.
Much higher. And that ultra-high purity is exactly what's needed for advanced defense applications, things like specialized magnets, guidance systems, that sort of thing. So the DoD funding is basically a stamp of approval. It says, okay, your tech meets this really high strategic standard we need.
Yeah.
It sets them apart from others who might produce lower grade stuff.
Got it. That makes sense. And they need money to scale this tech up, obviously. I saw something about $20 million in leasing.
Yes. And crucially, it was non-dilutive equipment leasing from Axis Capital, also in August.
Non-dilutive. That's the key phrase for shareholders, isn't it?
It really is. It means they get the cash to buy the necessary equipment for Marion and Noblesville without having to issue a bunch of new stock shares, which would dilute the value for existing owners.
Smart move. Avoids immediate pain for the stock price while still funding the expansion.
Exactly. The focus is all on ramping up production, rare earth oxides, lithium carbonate, those defense elements we mentioned. Plus, they sign an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with Piasco International. That signals potential future partnerships, maybe large purchase agreements down the line, once they prove they can produce at scale.
And there's even another angle, right? Something about e-waste recycling.
Yeah, another unit, electrified materials. They've developed a platform to recycle things like old hard drives and high-value magnets.
So they're trying to create a whole loop. source materials, process them, and even recycle end-of-life products containing them.
That seems to be the goal. Building this sort of self-contained circular system for critical minerals, trying to fully break away from reliance on, well, primarily Chinese sources right now.
Okay, so that's the bull case. Lots of activity, strategic partnerships, government interests, focus on scaling tech. It sounds compelling.
It does. It positions them as potentially a really strategic asset for the U.S. The catalyst looks strong on paper.
There's always a but, isn't there? That non-dilutive leasing helps, sure, but $20 million? Can that really fix everything if the underlying business is struggling? We have to pivot now and look at the numbers the financials filed with the SEC because that rearview mirror doesn't look quite as shiny.
No, it doesn't. This is where the optimism meets, let's say, the cold, hard reality of their current financial state. The core issue is that their legacy business seems to be funding this very expensive, very speculative new venture. If you look at their 2024 results, which they filed back in March 2025, revenue actually dropped quite a bit.
Dropped how much?
Went from $23.2 million in 2023 down to just $15.6 million in 2024. That's a significant year-over-year decline, over 30%.
Ouch. Over 30% drop in revenue from the existing operations. And I assume spending on the new stuff didn't help the bottom line either.
Right. Not at all. The net loss actually got bigger. They lost $15.8 million in 2023, and that grew to a $23.9 million loss in 2024.
Losing nearly $24 million in a year.
Yeah. And they directly state that this negative operating margin is because of the high costs of investing in these new rare earth and critical mineral lines.
Which just begs the question, how strong is the balance sheet that's supposed to support all this investment? You can't keep losing $24 million a year indefinitely without a huge pile of cash.
And that's the worry. The balance sheet, at least as of the end of 2024, showed some real signs of liquidity stress. They had about $16.7 million in total debt.
Okay. And cash.
Only $1.85 million in cash.
Wait, $16.7 million in debt versus less than $2 million in cash. Wow.
It's a jarring ratio. And remember, they also had negative operating cash flow for the year, about negative $11.2 million. So cash was flowing out, not in.
Okay, this is starting to paint a picture.
And it leads to maybe the most critical short-term financial metric, the current ratio, which compares current assets to current liabilities. Their current assets were under $14 million. But their current liabilities, what they owed in the near term, were around $19 million.
So liabilities are significantly higher than assets, a current ratio below 1.0.
Correct. And that's not just a bad sign. It's a pretty big red flag for potential near-term liquidity problems. It means basically they owe more money coming due soon than they have easily accessible assets to cover it.
That sounds like the definition of dilution risk, doesn't it? If they hit a snag, need more cash unexpectedly, they might have to issue more stock.
That's precisely the risk. So the bull case is built on future promises, government potential, scaling tech. The bear case is all about execution risk and this precarious financial situation. And the company even acknowledges in its own filings, its 10K, that the rare earth business is still essentially at pilot scale. Commercial output is limited and, frankly, unproven.
So that whole potential 69% upside, that analyst target, it really hangs on them successfully scaling up a technology that's still pretty new, commercially speaking, and is currently burning through cash fast.
That's the tightrope they're walking.
Okay, let's shift to how the market is actually treating the stock. What's the price action been like? You mentioned volatility.
Extremely volatile, which, isn't surprising for a small cap company with such a polarized story. Over the last 3 months or so, it's mostly been trading sideways.
Yeah.
Kind of stuck between $1 and $1.40 a share.
That was after they sorted out that Nasdaq minimum bid issue back in July, right?
Yeah, regaining compliance probably helped stabilize it somewhat.
Yeah.
But the underlying volatility is still there. If you look at the 30-day average true range, APR, it's around 12%.
12% daily swings on average. That's wild. Makes it tough for anyone but traders, really.
Definitely a trader's stock, not for the faint of heart. It moves sharply on news.
Speaking of signals, what about insider activity? Did you see anything there?
There was one notable sale. In August, Golden Properties, their major owner, hold over 10%. They sold 1 million shares at 1.26.
1 million shares? That's quite a chunk.
It is. Now, to be fair, they still hold a lot more, about 12.4 million shares. But, the optics aren't great when a major insider sells that much.
Yeah, especially with the financials looking stressed, it can feed that speculative unease.
Exactly. And there's very little Wall Street analyst coverage overall, which just adds to the speculative feel.
Okay, so what should people be watching for next? Are there key dates coming up?
Absolutely. The next few months are critical. Two main checkpoints. First, on October 10th, they're scheduled to release a Q3 preliminary operations update. That should give us the first real look at how the facility expansions are progressing.
Okay, operations update. And then earnings.
Then the big one, Q3 earnings release, expected around November 13th. Investors, especially short-term traders, are going to be laser-focused on those results. They'll want to see how that $20 million from Maxis is being spent and, crucially, get clear timelines for when Marion and Noblesville might actually hit real commercial-scale production.
Makes sense. Any delays or bad news there could really hit the stock given the financial backdrop.
For sure.
Now, stepping back again, beyond the official news, what's the chatter? What are the sort of speculative hopes driving some of the buying?
Well, there are a few things floating around. One is a persistent rumor that the Noblesville refinery, once it's fully running, might actually produce more than the officially stated 200 metric tons per year.
Ah, the old under-promise, over-deliver hope.
Kind of. Then there's speculation, fueled by geopolitics, that the DoD might step up with even more funding, maybe larger, longer-term contracts than just the initial $2 million.
Bigger government checks definitely wouldn't hurt.
Not at all. There's also talk about potential new joint ventures, maybe with big EV makers or electronics companies, global OEMs looking desperately for secure, non-Chinese sources of rare earths.
That would be huge validation, a major OEM signing on.
It would be massive. And finally, there's always the M&A angle. Given how strategic these domestic assets are perceived to be, could a larger mining company or maybe someone in the battery supply chain swoop in and buy American Resources Corp outright? Get an instant foothold in the U.S. rare earth space.
That's always a possibility with these kinds of strategic assets. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. Back to the original question. Is now a good time to buy American Resources Corp?
Based on everything we've discussed, that final investment thesis, the 3 out of 10 rating, it really highlights the extreme risk here. Yes, there's undeniable potential. Excellent early mover advantage in North American rare earth recycling. That's the upside the strong buy folks are betting on. But, and it's a huge but, that potential is balanced against truly weak fundamentals right now. Those big annual losses, the declining revenue from the legacy business, and especially that high execution risk combined with the liquidity risk shown by the current ratio.
So the takeaway isn't exactly a ringing endorsement for long-term investors.
No, not at this stage. The judgment is that the stock is probably more suited for short-term trading. What that means for you listening is potentially trading based only on news flow catalysts, those DoD announcements, capacity updates, financing news, high-risk entries and exits.
Not based on fundamentals because they aren't there yet.
Exactly. It's explicitly not recommended for long-term investment right now. Not until they actually prove they can achieve commercial profitability and significantly reduce that looming liquidity risk.
That's a very clear, if cautious, conclusion. It really highlights the gamble involved. It leaves us with a final thought, though, doesn't it? Given how intense the push is for domestic rare earth supply, the geopolitical pressure is only increasing, could massive government support potentially override traditional financial concerns? Could strategic necessity basically force the government to backstop companies like this, making proven profitability almost secondary in the short term? It's a fascinating question about how we might value strategically vital companies in this new environment, something for you to definitely mull over.